What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Facade. I'm your host, Gavin J. Gallagher, and on this podcast, I explore the mental and emotional game often playing out subconsciously both in your mind and the mind of everyone else in the real estate or property investment market. The key to success in this game is to master your mindset and behavior, to take control of your thoughts, your emotions, and, most importantly, your ego. Welcome to the show. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode, and this week is going to be a bit of a departure from the norm. You see, yesterday was the 1st of November, and on the 1st of every month I have what I refer to as my reorientation day. And so this is the month, believe it or not, November the 23rd of this month is going to be the 30-year anniversary of my father dying, and so it's quite a memorable month and it's an important month. And I've just been kind of thinking about the amount of, the stuff that I've gone through in my life, the ups and downs. I've described quite a bit of it over the last couple of episodes, the last couple of years. If you've been listening for a while, you'll be familiar with the different stories. But 3 decades now since my dad died, and man, what a ride that has been. And, I've talked about, if you go back, talked about my first real estate deal. I've talked about my worst real estate deal. I've talked about my best real estate deal. And a lot of you have listened to all that stuff, but there's an awful lot more to the story than just property and real estate. And that is one of the things that I want to kind of get into. And I recently gave a talk in London, and when I was over there, what I was doing, I kind of laid out some of the stuff, and I came up with what I call the 3 oars, and I call them like the 3 oars of my life: my rise, my roller coaster, and my road back, or the rise, the roller coaster, and the road back. And when I think about it, it's all about resilience. I talk about resilience a lot, and I've explained why resilience is important to me, why I put a huge amount of focus on it, primarily because of what I came through in 2008. But mental fortitude is super important in this game because you're going to face challenges and stuff like that. But whilst I talk a lot about resilience, I'm not sure I talk as much about focus and accountability. And if you take focus, accountability, and resilience, FAR, you'll go very far with those things. And so that's a little acronym I've come up with just there and then. Imagine that. So anyway, look, today's episode is all about performance coaching and accountability. And what I'm getting at here is, we talk about real estate and we talk about property investing and all that kind of stuff, but there's a much bigger thing going on out there. We all have lives that are made up of lots of different aspects. We have, as we say, we wear lots of different hats. And if you think about the different hats that you wear, in my case, I have the hat that I wear as a father, as a husband. I have the hat that I wear as an executive in a family business, real estate investor. Now I have the hat on as a podcaster and a person who makes videos and content and puts it on YouTube. But there's a lot of different hats that we wear, and really what it all comes down to is how you show up, depending on what is your, what are the different things that you're working on. So in my particular case, what I have been, doing over the years, I've been getting coaching of different types because I want to have the best possible performance in all those different areas in my life, with the different hats that I wear. And so what is, just breaking down, what is coaching? Coaching is really just having someone in your corner who is advising you. And a lot of the time, your coach is not telling you something that you do not already know. It's just that they're holding you accountable. You make a commitment to do something. Every day of the week, you might make commitments to yourself, but do you actually follow through on those commitments? Or do you kind of say, I'll get around to it tomorrow, whatever. When you have a coach, a lot of the time that coach will hold you to those commitments, and they hold your feet to the fire and make sure that you show up. And when I look back on my life and the stuff that I've done, the experiences that I've had, and the stuff that I went through, particularly around 2008 and those years after the big crash, a lot of it, my ability to get through that and the achievements that I've done and things like that, a lot of that goes back to my initial interest in personal development. And I know some people will hear personal development and kind of, it doesn't necessarily interest them. But I think we're all interested in improving who we are, and we're improving the performance or the life that we have, whether that's your fitness, whether that's, your relationships, whether that's financial success, whether that's, whatever it might be, creative success, for example. And I think about this, my personal development journey, it goes back to around about 21, 22 years ago. And that's when I kind of started paying attention to this stuff. And it all happened around about 1999. And that is because my uncle died. And he actually died from his own hand, suicide. And it was very, very difficult. Picture the scene, like I'm working on exams in college, and like my dad had already been dead quite a few years, but his brother stepped in and became chairman and was kind of looking after things. And so I was kind of like, okay, I've got somebody there who can kind of, keep the show on the road while I'm still learning all this stuff. And next minute he commits suicide. And I get a phone call from the guards, and the Gardaí say, are you related to this man? And I was like, yes. And he goes, okay, please come and meet us. And so I met this guard, and he shows me a passport for my uncle and says, is this your uncle? And I said, that's him. And he goes, I'm sorry to tell you he's dead. And when he explained what happened, I was just dumbfounded. I had no idea. But the worst thing then, he turns around and says, right now, come with me to his home. You're going to have to let his wife know what's happened. And I was just, what? Like I was still in my mid-20s, like it's very young for all this. And so anyway, it was a very, very difficult, hard day, and it's burned into my mind, as you can imagine. But it's made me pay attention to resilience and all of that kind of stuff very carefully. And stress can do that to people. Like it takes a lot of stress, obviously, to do it, but stress can ultimately have that kind of impact on people. And so I started paying attention to it, and I started thinking about performance and how do I become the high performance version of myself, so that I try to stay on top of the stress, that I don't ever let it get to me. And so I started working with an Irish coach, a guy at the time, like this is a long time back, but his name was John Murphy. And then I discovered a Canadian author, and he's kind of a self-help kind of personal development person, Robin Sharma. He wrote a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And I read that book, and I really liked that book a lot. And then more recently, I've worked with different coaches like Daniel Priestley in the UK. Daniel has been a guest on the podcast, and Daniel has his Key Person of Influence and oversubscribed, and he has lots of different kind of books that he's put out there. I've also worked with a coach called Dan Sullivan, who has a group called Strategic Coach. And Strategic Coach is based in Canada as well, but they're in Toronto, and they're also in Chicago. So Canada and the US, but they have these chapters around the world. So I joined that group, and then probably my current performance coach, who I work with, JP de Villiers, and like I came across JP through Daniel Priestley, and he had this awful bike crash where he almost lost his life. He was in a hit and run, cycling his bike. Some guy, drunk driver, hit him, left him for dead. And I think I've had JP on the podcast as well. So all of these guys, they have phenomenal kind of coaching, great stories and things like that. And over the years, I guess I probably invested like tens of thousands of euro on coaching. And I've traveled for coaching. Like every month jump on an airplane, fly over, stay in a hotel, meet with for the coaching group and all that kind of stuff. And what I'm getting at is, yesterday was the 1st of November, and I've been doing this now for about a year, and I have what I call my reorientation day. And this is something that I got from from Keith Barry. And Keith Barry is the magician you might have heard of. He's quite famous now in the world. But Keith came up with this idea of reorientation. And on the first of every month now, I have blocked out the entire day. Obviously, within reason. Some days it gets very busy and whatever, so perhaps I'll have a minimum of a half day. Try to go for a full day, and I'll turn off the phone and I'll just focus on me, my goals, my performance, and it's like a personal check-in. And during that, I will, check in, like, how am I doing? I'll remind myself of my goals. What I'll do, am I on course to achieve my goals? I have lots of different goals. I have my long-term goals. I call them my BHAG. I'm sure you've heard of the BHAG, an acronym before. It's big, hairy, audacious goal. And then I have medium-term goals, and then I have short-term goals. And I review every month how I'm doing on each of them. And I review, like, how has the past month gone? Like, where has my focus been? How has my energy been? How consistent have I been? Have I been showing up? And, remind myself why I am here. Like, why am I doing all this kind of stuff? And why do I do this reorientation day? Well, I do it because, as I've kind of come to realize, and I've heard this before, but there are two versions of ourselves. You listening today, there is two versions of you. There are two versions of me. There's two versions of everyone you know. And version number one is the one that you're looking at in the mirror when you wake up. And so I look in the mirror and I see a person in front of me. That is your current you. That is your, as you are today in reality. And then there's that other version of you. And that other version of you is the version that could be. The version of you that has achieved your highest potential. And anyone listening, like, do you not want to achieve your highest potential? Like, I challenge you, do you not want that? Like, who doesn't want that? We all want to achieve our highest potential, whether that's in work, whether that's athletically, whether that, whatever it might be, financially. And so I do a thing called a massive action review. And the massive action review it's basically comes around to the old saying, if you're failing to plan, then you're effectively planning to fail. And, next to that comes action. Like, how much action are you taking? What kind of action are you taking to achieve the plans that you have created? And I ask myself, like, what would massive action look like? You kind of say to yourself, oh, I'd love to, get fit. Well, that's not really very specific. Like, how fit do you want to be? Do you want to run a marathon? Do you want to do a triathlon? Do you want to run and do an Ironman? Whatever it might be, you set yourself a goal. And then you say to yourself, okay, how am I going to achieve this goal? And you can go out and you can do a little bit of running every day. But what about massive action? Like, what does massive action look like? What extra stuff would you do to absolutely guarantee success? And that's what I kind of look at. And I remind myself that I do not want to play small with my life. I want to play as big as I can, achieve as much as I can. And that is really what I'm working on. And what I'm really talking about here is hitting my targets. Like, do you want to hit your targets? What are your targets? Like, the first thing I'm going to ask you guys is, are you clear on your goals and targets? If I said to you, what are your goals in November? What are you hoping to achieve in November? Are you clear on that? Like, are you absolutely clear? Stop right now and think about this. What are your top 3 goals this month? List them out. What are they? If they are not at the tip of your tongue, if you're not able to immediately say, easy, 1, 2, 3, then you're not clear on your goals. There should be zero hesitation for you to actually tell me or write down what your top 3 goals are. And if you have to think about this and deliberate on it, then you're not clear on your goals. And if you're not clear on your goals, then you're not going to hit them, because you need to be absolutely clear, like crucial that you have complete clarity as to what you're aiming for. And, the reason I say that is
any kind of achievement, whether it's a big achievement or whether it's something that's kind of hard to do or something like that, or it's a long distance, it's going to need direction, like real direction. And so consider going to the west coast of Ireland, getting on a boat and setting sail for America and saying, yeah, I'm going to cross the Atlantic 3,000 miles, and when I get to the other side, I'm going to be at New York City. Well, unless you've got a compass and unless you've got a heading, you are not going to arrive in New York by accident. It is just, you have to have clarity around what you're trying to achieve, and only when you know exactly what you want to achieve can you start to establish a strategy, and the strategy is effectively the directions, if you want to use that analogy of crossing the Atlantic. Once you have your strategy, then you know what your targets and your goals are. You can start to have a better understanding of the roadmap that is ahead. A roadmap provides you with focus, and when you have focus, you can start to allocate resources. And so it's also much, much easier to say no when your priorities are clear. This ensures that you have to, take a much more proactive approach, and if you focus on your daily actions, that is going to deliver results. Like, don't focus on the result, focus on the actions every day. If you're focusing on the result at the end, that's not guaranteed. Like, various things can happen in between. But if you know what you're trying to achieve, and if I do this every single day for the next 30 days, I'm bound to achieve that. And that's called a leading indicator. There's two things to be looking at, to be tracking in your performance. One is a leading indicator, and the other is a lagging indicator. Your results are lagging indicators that you were on the right track, but you need to have a leading indicator. You need to know before you set off on the journey what are the milestones you're trying to achieve. If you arrive at the goal and well done, you've arrived at the goal, but that's only a lagging indicator. It's hard to track if you're waiting to know at the very, very end of the result. So where should you start if you are going to try and work on all this kind of stuff? I suggest you start with what I call my vision and values. And your vision is very, very, crystal clear, vivid visualization of what it is you're trying to achieve. Like, what do you want your life to look like, say 10 years from now? And what I'm talking about is, when I say vivid, I mean absolutely create like a lifelike picture in your head. Close your eyes and think about, what does your life look like? With such clarity or such vividness that you can smell it, you can actually hear it. You know exactly what you look like, you know exactly where you live, you know exactly what you're doing right now. And all of that kind of stuff is very, very good in visualizing how you're going to show up at the end of the day. And I know that Conor McGregor, for all of his achievements, he also has a lot of faults, obviously, but he talks about the fact that he visualized all of this years ago. And visualization is very important. Next of all, your values. So what are your values? Well, what I talk about when I talk about my values is, what are the top 5 words that would best describe what you stand for? And there's lots of different ones that you can come up with, like in terms of traits that you want to behave like. In my case, I have various traits that I look at, and I've got, one of them is clarity, one of them is focus, one of them is discipline, one of them is consistency, one of them is impact, one of them is accountability. So those are 6, we'll say, values. But I also have what I refer to as my 5 Fs. And my 5 Fs are my fitness, my family, my finances, my freedom, and my flame. Flame being my kind of passions and things like that. And those are important things to have, just to be able to remind you. You will never be satisfied if you are living out of alignment with your values. And if you don't know what your values are, then how can you know whether you're living in alignment with them? But there is subconsciously these values, and this is what you stand for. If you ever find yourself being kind of frustrated when somebody is late to meet you, that is because one of your values is punctuality. Now, not everyone is punctual, not everybody cares, but I am a punctual person, so that is one of my values. But you've got to figure out, like, what are your top values, the ones that are absolutely so important in your life. And what you do once you have your vision and values, you work backwards from that, and you start to figure out, okay, I'm going to establish some SMART goals now. Your goals when you want to have a SMART goal, that is specific, measurable, A for achievable. You're not picking something like, walking on the moon or something like that. Relevant and time bound. And so there's some sort of a timetable on it. That's a SMART goal. You create that. You want to also have some sort of a baseline assessment. So if you're starting today, and let's say you're working towards the end of the month, measure something yourself today. So if it is, a financial goal by the end of the month, or if it is, we'll say you're trying to get into running a marathon or something like that, well, then it'll be the number of kilometers or miles that you've run by the end of the month. Measure yourself today where you're at. Like, what is your time to run a 10K or a 5K? Or measure your weight. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, what's your weight today? By the end of the month, what will your weight be? There's a lot of different ways you can look at this thing. And what we do is we establish milestones. So if you're starting this exercise from the beginning and you're coming all the way from your vision, well, then you want to try and establish, okay, what would be, we'll say, a 5-year milestone goal for me to achieve, to know that I'm on track to hit my big, hairy, audacious goal at some point in the future. Then you'll have a 12-month goal. So what is your 12-month goal? And then what I do is I work really in increments of 12 weeks. And there's a whole concept around periodization. If your goals are too far away, you tend to ease off in terms of trying to achieve them. And so if you say, okay, the 1st of January, going to establish, a load of goals for December 31st. And then you say to yourself as the month goes, well, sure, I've got 11 more months, 12 more months on, so I can kind of ease off this month. But most people will know that the gyms are always packed on the first week or two of January. By February, usually it's fizzled out. And that is because there's 12 months that you're looking at, and therefore the space between them is too much. That's why I focus on 12 weeks. And what I look at is 12 weeks is effectively, we say, like a quarter. A quarter is 13 weeks. So I usually look at 12 weeks of like intense work, and then I'll take a week off, and then I'll look at another 12 weeks of intense work. But that intensification of 12 weeks, you can't ease off when it's 12 weeks is the window that you've given yourself for these big goals or these big results. It is far too short of a time for you to be able to ease off. Like, even 1 week will impact your end result. So what about the next 12 weeks? Set yourself 1 to 3 stretch goals. Say to yourself, you know what, by the end of the 12 weeks, I'm going to have achieved this and this, or maybe even a third one or whatever. You don't want to make too many. Too many goals is effectively no priorities. And people, when they wake up in the morning, they have a to-do list, and the to-do list might be 20 items or something like that. That to-do list means nothing. Like, that is 20 items. There's no priorities there. What you need is a list with 3 or 4, maximum 3 really. And that is your priorities today. That's the first thing to work on. Don't work on anything else until those 3 are done. Then, after you've completed those, all the other stuff can be added in. But do not start your day with like 20 or 30 items on a to-do list. Track your leading indicators. As I said before, like, work back and figure out, like, what is a leading indicator. If I'm trying to run a marathon, well, then a leading indicator will be the number of miles that I run each day. And so you'll know, if I want to run, say, 150 miles in a month, then I'm going to want to be doing so many miles per day. And every day you basically track and see, okay, I'm on course, I'm going to hit the 150. You cannot control your outcome necessarily, because there's a lot of things that can get in the way. People, you might make an offer on a property and you say, I'm going to have bought a property by the end of the 12 weeks, but the one property that you offer on may actually be rejected, or somebody overbids, or whatever it might be. And so that is not really something that's in your control. The outcome is outside of your control. But what is in your control are your daily actions that stack the deck in your favor. So if, for example, you want to become a property investor in the next 3 months, what you would do is you would say, right, I can't guarantee that I will own a property at the end of the 3 months, but how can I stack the deck in my favor? Well, I can review 10 properties a day on the paper or online, and I can choose at least 1 or 2 or 3 that I'm going to kind of study a little bit more in more detail, and I'm going to go and inspect at least 2 a week, and I'm going to make an offer when I find one that is appropriate. And that way, at least by the end of the month, you'll have assessed 300 opportunities. You'll have organized an inspection of, we'll say, maybe 30 of them or something like that. Well, maybe 30 is too much, but you know what I'm getting at. Basically, you break it down into actions, and there's a thing called, when we're looking at creating sales in a business, one of the things you should look at is your laps. Your laps are your leads, your appointments, your presentations, and your sales. And if you were trying to make sales, you say, okay, I need to have 100 leads a month in order to achieve 2 sales in a month. And you say to yourself, what do you mean by that? 100 leads, like it's 100 people coming across your advertisement or something like that. And of those 100 people, maybe 30 of them are going to say, okay, this is interesting, let's reach out. They click a button, the next minute they make an appointment with you to sit in front of them and give a presentation as to what it is you sell or your product or something like that. So how many of those? Maybe you'll get 30. And of the 30 that are booked, how many actually turn into presentations where the person doesn't cancel at the last minute or whatever? That might be 10. So you might actually give 10 presentations. But of the 10 that you give, you'll probably end up selling to 2 people. And so you started with 100 leads, you end up with 2 sales. But if your product is, we'll say, 5,000 or whatever like that, that's 10,000 a month that you're delivering in sales. Now, but you need to deliver 100 leads in order to meet that. One of the things that I have brought in is what I call super activation mode. In fact, let me give the attribution to the correct person. Keith Barry talks about super activation mode. And clear stretch goals, like you need a daily reminder. And as I said earlier, if you're not clear on your goal, then it should be at the tip of your tongue. When you wake up and get out of bed in the morning, the first thing on your mind should be your 3 stretch goals that you're working towards for the end of the 3 months or whatever, the 12 weeks. And then at the end of the day, in the late afternoon, you should review your performance today. How did you do? How did I show up? How could I have improved today? All of that kind of stuff. What one thing could I have done did it go well? If it didn't go well, what's the one thing I could have done that would have made it better? And let me implement that tomorrow. Whose help can I enlist? Tomorrow I'm going to enlist such and such a person's help. And there's the who, not how, is a concept from Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach. And the idea of who, not how is that rather than you going out and learning how to do something from scratch, which will take maybe months or whatever, there's a person out there who already knows how to do this, and you basically go to that person and they are your who. And that allows you to do an awful lot more to basically leverage time and magnify your results. Now, as you can tell, I am super passionate about all of this. This is what I refer to as radical accountability. And believe it or not, I was talking to a friend today about this, and we were saying, radical accountability, it's so up my street. And he was saying, why aren't you doing something in that space? And I was saying, well, real estate is my space. And he goes, yeah, but hold on. You should work within your nature. If real estate is one facet of your life, but you've got all these other facets, why not, do something that kind of incorporates those as well? So I am working on a brand new program that I'm going to be introducing next month. And the idea is make 2024 your best year ever. And so if this sounds like something, it's effectively an accountability group, but I'm planning to launch this. And the idea is that we'll start in December with a couple of meetings just to basically establish your plan. And then on the 1st of January, we kick off the 12 weeks. And at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll have established something really significant. And that is, it's going to involve weekly check-ins. There's going to be monthly accountability sessions. And there's going to be kind of a group format. So there's going to be support, encouragement, motivation. I'm also creating an elite or like a select version of it, like a VIP. And that is going to be, I can only do it for 5 people, but it is going to be working directly with me as your coach and advisor. It'll be, very personalized. It'll be me helping you achieve your goals, specifically on regular calls with me and stuff like that. But that's only for a small number. For those of you who are also interested in being part of this wider accountability group, do reach out to me and I'll be happy to put you on a list. I'm just going to make sure that I keep this tight enough. It's not going to go out to the whole world. It's really going to be people that are into this kind of thing, that really that are likely to kind of jump at the opportunity to be a part of this. And I know a lot of people out there, they are focused on kind of high performance and stuff like that. So it would be great to meet with some of you guys. If you're in my accelerator, you're going to be part of that accountability group anyway. So guys, until next time, I hope you found this one useful. Remember, patience and discipline. Stay grounded. I'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Facade. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please connect with me via the Facebook group that is called Behind the Facade Community. Alternatively, you will find me on social media. My handle is Gavin J. Gallagher. You can stay up to date with all of my content and the various projects I'm working on over on my website, gavinjgallagher.com. And while you're there, please do add your name to the Join My Tribe thing over on the right-hand side. This will ensure you're kept up to date via my weekly newsletter. All of these links are in the show notes below. That's all for now. I will see you guys in the next episode.